Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education by Kate Colbert and Joe Salustio with contributions by Elvin Freites is now available for pre-order on Amazon. Get your Kindle edition or your softbound book. It's going to be
amazing.
Fierce Education targets higher education leaders, administrators, and faculty, and those driving technology adoption decisions in this new blended learning world. Go to www.fierceeducation.com for all the latest news, tips, and successful case studies of what higher education institutions are doing to better student engagement, ensure equal access, and improve the assessment process. That's www.fierceeducation.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. In fact, we've made education your business. I said this on one of the last episodes over 500 times. Interestingly enough, and I was putting it on a post on LinkedIn. I like to give everybody, all of our listeners, a little bit of a peek behind the curtain on, how we measure, like, is this successful or is it not? And I was having this moment, and I called my, of course, the co-founder of the EdUp Experience podcast, Elvin Freites, and I was like, dude, Elvin, I got a podcast today. I literally cannot do it. I've lost my motivation for the day to do this podcast episode. Do I have to do it? Do we have a sponsor? Is there some reason why this guest is I have to have, can I reschedule? And he's like, oh man, he's like, you got to do it. You got to do this podcast. We have a sponsor. We got to keep the soundboard on. It goes without saying, but a couple dollars here and there helps us keep the sounds going. And I was just having this moment, guys. Like, I've done this so many times. It's just like, I just don't want to do it. I'm literally booked out every single day until the end of January of 2023. Except for Thanksgiving and Christmas Day. I've got a podcast every day, and only a few of them are with return guests or all original guests. And I'm getting to the point, and this is me just pouring my heart out to y'all. I'm like, I can't do it. I cannot do it. And so I did it, of course, even though I can't do it. I still did it. By the way, I need a vacation. And then we went back and we looked at, there is a point to the story, I promise. We went back and we looked at our metrics, and we discovered that over the last 30 days, so when this podcast comes out, it's like the middle of August till the middle of September of 2022, we had over 15,000 listens of our podcast episodes in 29 days. And within the last 3 months, over 40,000 listens of our podcast. And you think about what that means, what that adds up to. The average is about 30 minutes people listen in. You multiply 40,000 episodes by 30 minutes and divide by 60, and it's like a lot of hours. And that remotivated me, because it tells me that you guys are listening, that people do care whether we put this content out or not, that you're not getting tired of the EdUp experience. And that says a lot to keep us going, because this is not easy work, ladies and gents, to do this every single day at my lunch. So I eat while podcasting. I don't know if that's an actual job, but it is my job. And so I'll go off camera here. You'll see me duck off. I've got a couple of guests with me here. They'll see me duck out of the screen. What I'm doing is taking a bite of my sandwich, because that's what I do while I podcast, eat while podcasting. And the advice is don't do that. But anyway, enough about me and my sob story. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'm excited today because we have a first-time guest co-host, which I always enjoy because it's usually a train wreck, and a returning guest for an EdUp CatchUp episode. He's one of my favorite people in the entirety of higher education, and I say that honestly. One of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet, most knowledgeable guys about higher ed, and most passionate. He's got a beautiful family. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Let me bring him appropriately.
Stamp your feet on the ground now!
For Dr. Robert Keiser, Vice-Chancellor of the Graduate School at Keiser University. Robert, what's going on?
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much for having me again, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Welcome back. Well, we also brought in a guest co-host for you, and I'm going to bring her on appropriately. Here she is. It's Anya Bierzinski. I had to practice that a couple times. She is Senior Executive of Digital Solutions at Advanced 360 Education. What's going on, Anya?
Hi, Joe. Thanks for bringing me in. I hope I live up to your expectation of making this episode a complete train wreck. So
you will, because I have absolutely no expectations. And so you've already done it. Wonderful.
I'm so excited.
Well, Robert, let's get on to you, my friend. How are you? How are things? Last time we spoke, gosh, I don't know. You must have been in like were you in the first 100 guests probably? Do
I
you
think
remember?
yeah, I think I was. And actually, to that point, I just want to give a shout out to you and Elvin and Liz and the amazing work that you do. It's incredible to be one of the beginning guests, watch your journey, the amount of content you guys put out. And I'll be one of the audience members that says what you do is actually very meaningful, very impactful. I love listening to all the guests you have. It's been extraordinary for you to tap into the higher education administration community. My problem is I can't keep up with your content, guys. I don't know how you do it. It's you guys are beasts. It's amazing.
Yeah, we have conversations about that sometimes. It's like, is too much, and then we're like, you know what? People listen to the ones they want to listen to, and the others, they don't, and we're okay with that. You know what it is that we got to a point, Robert, where there's just a lot of people that we don't want to be able to come on and tell their story, and it's like, how do I say no? How do I say no to anybody in higher ed that could help us learn about what's going on? So we appreciate you and that compliment. It means a lot. What's going on at Keiser these days, my friend? You're in a new role now.
Yeah, I'm just appreciative that they put up with me. As I discussed on the first podcast, Dr. Arthur Keiser, who's our chancellor of the university, and Mrs. Evelyn Keiser started the university in 1973 with one student. Actually, on the Zoom, for those of you who are viewing the Zoom, that's actually the original school behind me. It was a 3,000 square foot building. Arthur and Evelyn were the A&E cleaning crew because they did all the jobs. There was no Title IV, no financial aid. And now today, Keiser University is a 21 campus system. We are the largest not-for-profit private in the state of Florida by enrollment. We were just ranked #1 in social mobility by U.S. News and World Report in the country. So we're absolutely ecstatic about that. And about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, I took my role as the Vice-Chancellor of the graduate school. So unfortunate for the graduate faculty and staff, they put up with me, but I appreciate them so much.
That's incredible, man. Congratulations. I know you guys continue to grow. Like, that's one thing about Keiser University that I think is really, I don't want to say it's unique, but it's lesser, where there just is not as many schools growing right now. There's a lot with many enrollment challenges. Keiser has consistently grown over the years. What's the secret sauce, man? Here on live on the EdUp Experience, how do you do it? And give us the secrets that we all want to know.
Sure. I actually think it's really straightforward. And actually, Joe, I know you practice this every day as a practitioner, because if you don't know, this guy actually has another full-time job. But the reality is that we care about the student. The student is not a number to us. And I'll just give a perfect metaphor. I think many people can liken their experience in post-secondary education to this. I went to a great university for undergrad and for my MBA. I went to George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and my student ID was G336428858. And people were like, that's crazy, Robert. Why do you remember that number?
Yeah.
And the reality is I don't remember very many numbers. I'm not a math guy, that's for sure. You can ask my wife about that. But I remember my wife's number, my parents' number, and my nanny's number for my children, and that's about it. But the reason I remember my student ID is because that's how GW knew me. Yikes! So the reason why I believe we're successful is that we care about the student. We engage a student in an active learning process, and we never let them be a number. If you put the student first and you take care of them, they take care of you.
That's really nice, Anya. That is so true, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
I'll let you slide in, Anya, and take over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I personally, I love the Keiser school story. I've heard it before, Rob, from you, and for the first time, actually, in a presentation that you did at FAPS. And I'm not a Florida native. I've been here for 18 years now, but I have been in the sector for 15 of those years. But I have even witnessed visually the evolution of the brand Keiser, and also how you've the brand has navigated the treacherous waters of the space, right? So from that for-profit status to nonprofit, and continue to thrive. And I think that it is so true that what really sort of is what separates you from everyone else, and it's the story that you just told there, and that matters to students.
How do you keep that going, Robert? How do you ensure in an industry like this? Is one of the questions that always exists. how do you make decisions that are student in rather than inside out, right? Because when we look at things, we go, well, we're going to do this because we want to do it, or, you know, here's a new calendar, or here's a new program, or we think this is going to be great. And, you know, are we really, how do you stay, it's just a, I don't even know how to ask it because it's such an important question, but one we seem to get muddled up in our own thoughts and feelings about what students want and what they need, but the students might be telling us different, and we don't always want to move as fast as the student tells us we need to move. How do you stay on top of that?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. And Anya, thank you for the nice comments. I really appreciate that. Well, I think like anything else, it's top down and it has to be part of the culture. So of course I'm partial, but I'm going to give a shout out to my chancellor, Dr. Arthur Keiser. And Dr. Arthur Keiser and Ms. Evelyn Keiser, in the founding of the school, they founded the university as an idea to build a better mousetrap, essentially. And the thought was they were both in their graduate programs. They had a very similar experience that I was describing at Temple and University of Florida. Again, great schools. And if you're an alumni, it's not to hate on them. It's just to demonstrate it's a different type of experience. And we have adult learners. We have a different demographic of student. But what they wanted to do was to create a post-secondary education experience that was more personalized, more individualized, more in tune to the methods of learning that we talk about as educators all the time. And that is the thought, that is the ethos by which we operate every single day. So how do you put that into action? Because that's a great question, especially when you're growing. And we are growing, and we're so excited, and we feel so humble that Floridians and people all over the world, frankly, in China, Nicaragua, and the United States, call Keiser University their home. It is hard with growth, but the messaging has to be the same. The communication has to be the same. In action, you have to demonstrate what you believe in. Actions speak louder than words. So for instance, there have been many times where we made a mistake as a university and we have caused students to be charged. Many universities, you know, and hopefully not, but I do believe it, would say, hey, well, you know, that's the price of admission. There's an operational overhead, right? We will always make it right. We will always refund the student. We will always stand by the student. If we made a mistake, and that's something the chancellor says every day, if we make a mistake, we own it, no matter how bad it makes us look. If we make that mistake, we're also open in our communication to the student. We apologize to the student, and we make it right. When you see that in action, whether it's in financial aid, admissions, whatever it may be, academics, you believe it. And we also, when we recruit our faculty and our staff, what we're looking for is passion and caring about education. Joe, you and I, you know, we talked about this. At the end of the day, education is a business, but it's business with a heart. And if you're not in it for the right reasons, you shouldn't be in the industry. And the right reasons to me, now this is me preaching, so I apologize for that, but the right reasons to me is that you care about students' development. You want to help them progress interpersonally and technically through education so that they compete in a global workforce. And if that's not your core to what you do every day as an educator, you're probably in the wrong industry.
Well, how come some people are so good at ending sentences to have meaning? You ever think about that, Robert? You like end these sentences? I'm like, damn, that's good. How come I can't do that? You know, you got to give me some lessons.
I think your true calling is a club DJ. We spoke about this earlier.
You talking to Robert?
No, you.
Hey, well, I don't know. If Joe can give me lessons, I'm good for being a club DJ.
Yeah. Go ahead, Anya.
So something you touched on briefly, and I definitely don't want to gloss over it, was Keiser's recent recognition of the social mobility ranking, and you know what that means for sort of touching underserved communities. So I would love to just hear from you more about. I mean, you spoke about, you know, how every student's not a number, but really like the significance of that recognition to you and then faculty, staff, and the university.
And let me add one bit. Let me add a bit onto that. In the greater context of rankings, why is that the one that you brought up that you care about?
Joe, you know me so well. I love this. This is, you know, it's great to be with friends. And Anya, thank you for asking that question, and thank you for pointing it out. It is the ranking that we are most proud of by far. It is what we predicate our work on every single day. And the reason is, and I'll be provocative about this, Keiser University has no aspiration to be Harvard University. Now, that is probably a hot take in higher education. There are many universities, probably most in this country, that would say that's absolute blasphemy. How could you not want to be Harvard? I'm not saying that Harvard is not incredible, right? We all know that. We all know that they have incredible faculty. Obviously, their administration is also incredible with their ridiculous endowment and all the resources that they provide for their faculty and staff to help them do what they do well. It's not about that. It's the student demographic that we serve. And as I mentioned in my previous answer, the core of our mission is helping students progress. So our vision, if you broke down a mission statement, took it off the wall and said, what does Keiser do? And what do we care about? We care about taking blue collar students, making them gray collar employees, gray collar students, and making them white collar employees. Amazing. That's what we focus on. Our demographic, we have a large proportion of Pell students. We have a very diverse group of students. We are majority women, about 70% women, because of our large allied health portfolio. We are a Hispanic serving institution. Actually, the majority of our students are now Hispanic, and that's part of our geography living in Florida. And we have a large portion of Black students too. And we're very proud of the demographic that we serve. And again, we're an adult learner population. The average age at undergrad is 28. The average age of grad school is 40. So these students are older, they're more mature, they are making their own investment. This is not their parents like me. My parents paid for me to go to school. That's not the case for them. And they are very much focused on getting in and getting out. And that's why it's so important to us, because they come to us oftentimes when they have not been successful before in education, oftentimes when in high school, they didn't know they were going to be college material, their first in family, first generation to go to college and to be successful. And why I care about this the most is because education in this country is a dichotomy in terms of philosophy. For me, education was a mandate by my family. It wasn't a choice. It was about where I was going to go to college. That's all I cared about. I went to a college preparatory school. When I got my master's, I remember my grandmother came to me and she said, well, that's great, Robert. When are you going to finish your doctorate? That's the environment I grew up in. Very rare, 1% for sure. Our students, education is a choice. It's not just about opportunity. There are many people in their lives that are saying, why would you do that? Why would you invest so much money in pursuing a career that leads to nowhere, pursuing a field that leads to nowhere? Why go to college? You're not college material. No one in our family is going to college. So when our students graduate and when they're successful, they don't only change their lives for the better, they change the family tree. Generations after them have an expectation that they will then go to university. And if you look at any statistical analysis related to economic facts of graduate or college degree attainment or master's attainment, each level of degree attainment, you go up, the higher your average income is per family. So that's why I'm so proud, because we really are taking students who are the backbone of this country and helping them upskill. And I think that's more meaningful than, back to the Harvard consideration, taking kids who have all the opportunities, have all the privileges, are straight A students, and making them into Zuckerbergs or Bezos and whatever. That's cool, and I love it. It's great. We need Bezos, don't get me wrong. He changed my life. That's all I get is Amazon boxes every day.
Right.
But right, I mean, I don't even go out anymore. It's crazy. But for me, this demographic speaks to me. What we do speaks to my heart and to my altruism more, and that's why we're so proud of it.
100%.
Fierce Education is the place where higher education leaders, administrators, and faculty, and those driving technology adoption decisions in education can access proven methods and best practices as they rethink pedagogy and business models in the new blended learning world. Through its website, www.fierceeducation.com, virtual events, and newsletters, Fierce Education focuses on rethinking higher education in a blended learning world. Fierce Education's key tenets are to use technology for teaching better and reaching learners everywhere, addressing business model changes required to move forward, and workforce preparation for adult learners who are out to reskill. That's www.fierceeducation.com. Anya, you want to keep going? Because I got a question, but I'm going to let you drill Robert further if you'd like to.
Sure. Not, I can drill him further. So, it's this month is Hispanic Heritage Month, and Keiser University, obviously a Hispanic serving institution, and I believe recently, just touching on the importance of just the sort of demographic as to Florida as well. What we see now, like when we think like pre-pandemic, how the Florida is getting more and more diverse, right? And we're not just talking about migration in, migration out from other states, but just organically. And with that, I don't think that we really take into consider often, or at least I don't until I actually sit and think about it, how that impacts like the demand on jobs, how that impacts, particularly in Florida, how that impacts and how that's going to change what we teach in the classroom as well. So with the significant labor shortages across the country, and also in Florida, right? So I'm just going to drill it down to Florida. When we think of infrastructure, clean energy, and of course, nursing, how does Keiser and how are you preparing that for that sort of the boom and then students for the future?
Sure, it's another great question. And it's true, Florida is growing rapidly. The pandemic, as you mentioned, accelerated that growth.
Yeah.
I like to say that any Northeasterner who had a retirement plan, that plan was expedited, and they just said,
For
all right,
sure.
let's go. We'll work, even if we're working, we'll work from home and look at the beach. That sounds great. So as a native Floridian, I say welcome. It's great. I love Florida, and it has been really wonderful from the standpoint of that there's increased opportunity in Florida and growth. We do have to address it. We have to make sure that we're responsive to the community and the changing of the demographics in Florida, of course. And I think most people of the audience would know Florida for a long time has had Hispanic immigrants, whether it's South America, Central America, even in the Caribbean. You have a Spanish speaking population, of course, Cuba and a variety of countries. So I live in South Florida. I live in Palm Beach County, which is part of the Tri-County, Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach, which most people know because of the elections and how crazy it gets down here. Yeah, I guess we can't count
Big
votes.
spotlight,
I don't know why.
right?
Yeah, exactly. And we apparently always have a challenge with this thing.
Right.
But we're a melting pot. We're a melting pot. We represent the United States, and we're proud to serve a Hispanic population. To that point, how do you change? How do you modify? You got to be nimble. And that's one of the things that Keiser does pride itself on, being nimble, being ready to take on workforce changes. We actually teach in 3 different languages as a SACS accredited institution. Yeah, so we teach in Mandarin. We also teach in Spanish, and we teach in English. We deliver the same curriculum, but they're going to be learning in their native tongue. And the reason being is that many of the students who are coming to us either want to stay in their home country because American education is really sought after, or it's just more accessible for them. They're, one of the things that you notice a lot living in South Florida, they're incredible people, immigrants who come to this country who have the credentials, but their credentials are not recognized because they receive those credentials in their home country. So just taking the classes in a language that is more comfortable to them provides them access like they never had before. It's a level of comfort that they didn't have before. And therefore, it gives them a trampoline in which they can jump into the job they've been doing their whole lives, just in a different country, and learn language along the way. We also offer ESOL, and many of our students at the same time concurrently take ESOL courses. So that's part of how we respond to the Hispanic population in Florida. And then look, like anything else, the world is changing, right? There's a nursing shortage. So Keiser is the leading producer of nurses in the state of Florida. We've been for a while with the highest NCLEX passage rate in the state as well. So we make sure that our quality comes first, and then quantity comes after always. And we are adding nursing programs actually in the graduate school, which is what I have oversight over. We just added the first women's health practitioner nursing program in the state of Florida. because there is a large need in the state, but also in the country to
Mhm,
focus specifically on women's health needs
mhm.
at the
That's
advanced
nice.
nursing. Yeah, the advanced nursing practitioner level. We're also starting a midwifery program. And then the one that I'm really excited about, this was a little bit of my baby. We're starting a fintech program, a
Mm.
master's
Very
in
cool.
finance technology. That's an int.
Money.
Yeah, I'm. I love the sound effects. They're great. Um, I'm excited about that. We actually are strange. We don't offer a finance degree. So I said, you know what? Forget the finance degree. Let's just go into the future. Let's just do finance and tech together. Because I understand like fintech, most people look at it like it's cryptocurrency. So that's a part of it. That's not the whole thing. You have blockchain security, which is
Yep.
going nowhere. I mean, that's going to be prevalent for all of our industries.
Mhm.
You have the non-fungible tokens, the NFTs. You have the legal field with this whole industry that is blossoming, but it's not regulated. You know, for instance, we probably all on this call use Zelle or Venmo,
Mhm.
PayPal, whatever. That's all fintech companies, and there are lawyers who are trying to make sense of the space. So we are nimble, we are responsive. We'll be the second in the state after University of Central Florida to offer a master's in fintech. Um,
Fantastic.
so we just are always looking at market trends, demographic trends, and tailoring our program portfolio and our student services to meet those needs. And I think that's probably the best
That's
answer to
obviously
that.
going to help attract students, right? So a big
Yeah.
part of this is where are the students? How do you find them? I mean, that's for any institution, right? That matters a lot. Another thing that matters, and I'm going to just pull back the curtain, have you pull back the curtain for me just a second. How do you fashion your academic calendar to serve an adult student? Do you have multiple ins and outs? Are you on a standard academic year? Are you a non-standard term? How do you think about delivering to an adult student, because they're just not the 18-year-old in a 16-week with a 4-week break over Christmas kind of student?
Yeah, you nailed it. And your question is absolutely appropriate, Joe. The adult learner doesn't want to stop. They don't want this big summer break. They want to continue. They want to get in and they want to get out. I often tell students, as excited as I am to see you, I'll be just as happy to see you on, because I know you're on to bigger and better things. That's the focus of the adult learner. They want to spend it, be thrifty. They want to make sure it's a good ROI for them. That's obviously a huge topic in education today, is the finance side, right? Yep.
Mhm.
And then the second is, how do I take classes so I'm not taking prerequisites to prerequisites? I'm getting into my core and I'm getting in and out. So to your point and to your question, yes, we're on a standard academic year. We actually follow a semester model, but we do it differently. We do it in modules. So at the
Mm-hmm.
undergraduate level, which is probably the easiest to explain, you take 4 classes at a time, the same as you would say at University of Florida. So math, English, history, and science, and you take it in a 16-week period, which is your standard semester. But what we do is you take math for 4 weeks and then you're done. Your midterm at 2, your final at 4 weeks, and then you move on to the English. Why do the adult learners like that? Well, first and foremost, and research backs this for every student, it's easier for the adult learner to focus on one thing at a time. Humans are not great at multitasking. I like to think I am. My wife tells me I can't all the time, especially when
Really?
I'm, especially hopefully there's no police officers listening to this, especially when I'm driving. She says I'm not great at multitasking, so hopefully we don't have that in the audience. No, not too
Ouch.
many CJ people here, but it's just true. It's backed by research. The process of studying vigorously for 4 weeks on one subject helps the human brain really
Mhm.
learn it and
Mhm.
really retain that information. And instead of when we were in school trying to learn Shakespeare, trying to learn
What?
Pythagorean's theorem, and trying to learn, let's say, biology, okay,
What?
at the same time, yeah, I don't know any of them either. Um, it's crazy. And what ends up happening is students cram, they don't do any work for about 6 weeks. That seventh week, right before their midterm, they're cramming. Then they're trying to get past their midterm. They do it in the 15th week as well, right before the 16th week final. And then they lose all that information. It's just about
Ah!
intake and regurgitation. We want to avoid that academically. We also want to give it in bite sized pieces where an adult learner can learn it. Also, it makes it easier for students to stop and come back. So we do have a lot of students who stop, then they re-enter, and our process allows us to start every month. So we have 12 starts a year as opposed to the typical 2 or 3 in the traditional semester. And there's just a final point, and this is good for students in general, is the transfer credit aspect. If a student goes 15 weeks at George Washington University and then they drop at the 16th week, they don't take their final, they don't get their final grade, they have no credit to show for their work. They could have had an A all the way to 15 weeks for all classes. It doesn't matter. At Keiser, because of our model, you'll have 3 classes under your belt. And when you come back, or if you go to a different institution, you'll have those credits on your transcript. You will have credit for what you've earned and what you learned. And you'll just have that one class that you may have to retake. So there's unique advantages for the adult learner. But again, that is our model, and that's focus on the adult learner's needs.
Love that. Thank you for talking about that, because I think that's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, there are a lot of academic models that create ins and outs that you don't have to be boxed in. You can look at, there's a lot of ingenuity within. Standard doesn't mean the same. It can mean lots of things if you're willing to adapt curriculum to meet the needs of an adult learning population. You can do lots of stuff, but you've got to get people with you. You've got to set the culture. You've got to say, this is what we're doing, and this is who we're serving, and then figure out how the institution moves to the student instead of the other way around, which is still the way that we're going, right? In many institutions across the U.S., that is still the way things are happening. And it's institutions are trying to get to the point where Keiser is to say, we're going to meet the student here. This is where they are. We're going to meet them there, and we're going to change every single process we have to get there, instead of, well, we can't do it this way because of this reason or that reason. There's a lot of reasons why we can't do things. That's what got us in trouble in the first place, I think. So kudos to you guys. I know so much about your institution, Robert, and your dad, and Dr. Art Keiser, the one, the only. By the way, he's got like 40 years in higher ed, some insane 40 or 50 years. Dude is a legacy of higher education, an important man, and he's been at the federal level doing lots of work on Title IV and accreditation, NASIQI, I mean, all those things. A shout out to him, because he has been a great guest for us on previous episode as well. So he's done a lot of work to set a foundation of serving that we hope to continue along the way, many of us. So Anya, any last questions from you before we close out?
Last questions, I guess. I would just love to know from your perspective, Rob, what, for the future of education, what keeps you up at night, apart from the babies, right? So them aside, like, what really keeps you up at night? Top 3 things.
Yikes!
That's a great question. I might have to take a moment to really think about that, because there are a lot of things that keep me up at night, including the children. Yes,
right.
I was trying to keep them up at night too, because we connected, play a little PS5, and I was like, Rob, I'm in the Pacific time zone, man. You got to stay up later so I can. And then he wouldn't stay up, and that was it. We never connected.
Well, we're gonna have to change that. We have.
Yeah, I'm only an hour behind you now.
Yeah, well, we have the new game coming out, so I'm gonna have to call you or text you. But
Let's do it.
And thank you, Joe, for the nice words for Dr. Keiser. I just always try to tell him. I said, look, I want to be a sponge. Try to disseminate as much information, knowledge as you can to me, because I'd love to get there without all the gray hair. Right? I'll try to do that faster.
That doesn't work, man.
Well, that's true. I got 3 daughters, so it might not work.
Yeah, get ready.
But yeah, and to Anya's question, what keeps me up at night? I think the first thing is that, well, there's a couple things, and this is going to be like a bigger societal issue. Post-secondary this is going to be a little bit hard hitting, a little philosophical, but I can't help myself.
I'm ready.
Post-secondary education is the bastion of intellectual curiosity and psychological safety. That is where society, American society, and even I would say global society said, you can have any belief, you can have any topic, you can have any religion, sex, whatever it may be, but we're going to debate this cordially, respectfully, professionally, within the confines of higher education. And I think that's critical. I think that higher education's role, a lot of the time, especially at the graduate level, I would say, is to stimulate critical thinking and to stimulate an ability to listen. And right now in this society, and I do think it's a failure of higher education, and you see it in the politics, and I don't care what your politics are. Okay, we all have different politics. It's one of the beautiful things about being an American is that you have different politics and you can practice those beliefs. But I think we've lost the ability to have conversations respectfully and cordially about tough topics.
Right.
And I like to say this all the time, that if you got a group of friends around the table, and most friend groups, they have people who are liberal, people who are conservative, whatever, all over the spectrum of politics and belief systems and race and creed. And you sat them at a dinner table, we'll figure it out. We'll talk it out. It would be fine.
Yes.
But when you are put into more public settings, that doesn't seem to happen. And I do believe that higher education needs to do more to support that academic discussion, that philosophical discussion. I think that's core to what we do. And a respect for all diversity, everything. So I think that's one of the things that concerns me, because I do think that we are the leaders in creating an educated populace. And when you have educated people who fight like it's, a religious war, excuse my metaphor, but a lot of these things need to be discussed, and it's not a dichotomy. It's a spectrum, and we got to be in the nuance, and we got to be respectful of each other. So I think that's one. Number two is the whole ROI finance conversation. I absolutely agree. Post-secondary education needs to be more accountable for its cost. I don't think there's a question about that. I think there's incredible waste in post-secondary ed. I'm an MBA, so when I'm looking at what we do at Keiser, the broader spectrum of the industry, you see a lot of inefficiencies. You see a lot of structures and resources that are not created for the right reason. And again, what is the right reason? The student. That's it.
Yeah.
The student is the core of the mission. We do things too often, and I love my faculty and I love my staff, but too often we do things that are self-serving to build our brand, to build our facilities, to build our rankings in US News and World Report, which I think is a huge mistake. It's got to be about the student. And if that's not the focus, you're doing it wrong. I'll just be the first to say it. And I think then that causes doubt, that causes frustration amongst the population of college goers. They're saying, well, why would I get that degree? What does it lead to? What does it matter? Do I learn anything? Is there rigor? They may not say it in those words, but they want to be challenged. They want to learn. They don't want, and I get it. I went to GW, I was in a fraternity, there's a social experience, but it's got to be more than that.
Right.
It's got to be deeper, and it has to be, challenging for the student. And I think they're not, the demographic is not seeing the return on investment for what they're paying in terms of costs for education. So educators need to do a better job being more efficient, being more frugal, being more sensible about what we spend on. But then number two, we have to demonstrate our value to the student population. We have to get back to what education should be, and understanding too, there's a diverse fabric of institutions in this country. There are institutions who are more liberal arts education based. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but the consumer should know that's what you're going for, right? You're not going for job placement. That's not the focus. And there are large portions of institution like Keiser that focus directly on upskilling for occupation. And there needs to be an understanding of that, but there needs to be universities demonstrating the value proposition. Because my concern with the whole student debt is that our population in America is going to fall behind other countries, because they're going to say, hey, forget it. It's not worth it to go to university. Where all the data, all the research shows that's just not true.
Right.
If you look at the Fortune 500, Fortune 100, the senators, the representatives, think whatever you want about these people, they're all educated. They all have minimally bachelor degrees, and most of them have master's degrees. So in society, it still matters. It's still important. And I don't want to scare students off because we're not doing our job. And then I guess you said three things. So the third thing that keeps me up at night is, I think the lack of understanding of different demographic of students and the regulation that comes from it. I would lie, if you get Dr. Keiser again on EdUp, he'll talk about regulation all day. And it's because we live it. When you receive Title IV funds, and accreditation is the gatekeeper for Title IV funds, you are subject to scrutiny from the federal government, and rightfully so. I don't think there's anyone that would think that there shouldn't be oversight. That's not the question. The question is do we understand as a legislative body, as educators, that I'm a different type of student than the student goes to Keiser. I'm not better. I'm not worse. I just had a different life experience growing up. And there are different types of universities for different types of students.
Yep.
Will we be tolerant to that? Because if we're not, and we go after a sector of education, career colleges, or if we demonize liberal arts education because their applicability to workforce is not there, we're going to cut out really important segments of our society. Who's going to make truck drivers?
Right.
Who are going to make the welders? Who are going to make the electricians on the career college side?
Yeah,
somebody there is
because you can't find one.
Exactly. We can't find one right now. Right. And they're crushing the industry. And then on the other side, it used to be, and I think there is a value to this, we just need to understand that there are different types of institutions. And I think that's where, as educators, we don't talk about who we are enough and what we do and what we care about. But it used to be that it was very important that our entire population had a holistic understanding of broad-based topics. I think that anyone understanding philosophy and ethics is probably a good thing. Having a more ethical society, to me, is never a bad thing. Correct. But if you're going to scrutinize schools because that ethics degree doesn't lead to high-paying occupation, we're kind of losing sight of the mark. It never was intended. That's a good point.
That's a good point on the degree to job. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was never intended to do that. And look, I come from a career-focused institution. We don't do bachelor's in ethics. Okay, so this is not a self-serving comment. We don't do it. That's not our focus. That's not our mission. We know who we are. We know our student demographic, and we focus on serving our student demographic and what they want. And they want occupations, and they want to be upskilled, and they want professional development, all these things. But for a 18-year-old student who doesn't know exactly what they want in their life, who's still trying to find themselves, frankly, ethics is probably a good class to take.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. We just have to understand as consumers that if you're going to pay for it, you're going to get a class that's more theoretical, that's more philosophical. It's not going to make you employable tomorrow. And I think that's what my concern is that there's just and I think this goes for a lot of industries from a political perspective, a 40,000, 60,000 even viewpoint and understanding of what we do as educators. And then us as educators, we're too afraid to say, it's okay to be different. We're not all about career education. We're not all about upskilling, but there are schools that do that. And we're not all about liberal arts education, but there are schools that do that. So I think that if regulation and we try to, and this is the fear, and I'm sorry, I'm long-winded. I just get really passionate about this stuff. But this is the focus, is that if we treat everything, if we treat all types of education as templated, and we try to template it, we're gonna, and we start passing regulations that either ostracizes or makes it impossible for other types of universities to do business, we're gonna really hurt American population.
Well, that is pretty well said. I told you he's really good at ending points.
That should have been my first question, because we could have spent another hour unpacking all those three things. So
well done. Well, you guys, this is now come to an end, and I'm so glad that I could we could bring this group of people together. Of course, my guest host today, ladies and gentlemen.
Attention.
She is Anya Bierzinski. She's senior executive of digital solutions at Advanced 360 Education. Anya, what do you think of your first co-hosting gig over here at EdUp?
Well, I hope I lived up to your expectations by completely botching it. So I'm sure there's a review after. So you and I will take that offline.
You got it. And of course, my guest today, ladies and gentlemen, he is the one, he is the only.
Come on, put your hands up in the air.
For Dr. Robert Keiser of Keiser University. He is the Vice Chancellor of the Graduate School at Keiser. Robert, thanks for coming again, man.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and it's a pleasure. Joe, keep killing it. It's awesome what you guys are doing. I am an avid fan and I love the content you guys put out. And Anya, you did awesome. I mean, you're a
Well,
little
thank
too
you
hard
so
on
much.
yourself. That's the only critique I would say.
Well,
She
thank
did
you so
pretty-
much.
She did pretty good. I mean, we'll see what the review process says.
Right. We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see
And
what that
I-
end of course survey says. Yeah.
Right. And just thank you, Rob, to you and your entire family for everything that you've done for the community here in South Florida. And as you continue to educate, we thank you so much. It's just tremendous what you do and your family does. So
Thank you so much. It's very humbling. Appreciate that.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education by Kate Colbert and Joe Salustio with contributions by Elvin Freites is now available for pre-order on Amazon. Get your Kindle edition or your softbound book. It's going to be
Amazing.